Well, welcome to a new episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics. We've got the full crew today. We've got Liz, Matt, James and myself, Liam, who've got together, it seems like ages since we've all been on a podcast.
It's the middle of August. Somebody's supposed to be on holiday, surely.
Yeah. You can tell by the colour of us, can't you?
Well, some of you.
But it's that time of the year, you said it's the summer, and Microsoft have recently released the Wave 2 release notes for the
Well, they
version
came out middle of July. I mean, I thought that the release notes were supposed to come out 1st of August, and then the preview, but it came out early this time.
It's about the 16th
so it was a couple of weeks, couple of weeks early.
That's Copilot for you.
They're more efficient. Well, we'll see. And so they've produced the document. You can find it all on Microsoft.learn, I think it is, or learn.microsoft. Matt will always tell me that. Learn.microsoft. And you can find the release plans for not just Business Central, but Power Platform and Dynamics 365, everything. So if people want to go into some more detail, you can find it there. But we're going to go through, obviously, just focus on Business Central for today's episode. It's a little bit like when the catalogue used to arrive for Christmas and you could see what you wanted.
And mark everything off.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. But there's a few things we always go through, like the features, as in the application, and there's some development stuff, and then there's some Copilot stuff and all the usual stuff that Microsoft bang through. So we'll go through and pick out there's not just the highlights, but what we're looking at. We always caveat it, so I'll start by that this is something that won't always appear on day one when the Wave 2 releases.
Sometimes it won't appear.
Well, interestingly,
sometimes the stuff will.
I looked at the Wave 1 release that came out early in the year, and out of the 80 odd things they said we're going to ship, as 90% have shipped now. So there's a couple left, but they're saying in August and September they'll come. Some are in public preview.
Because it's a 6 month.
It's a 6 month rollout. So it just shows they drip this out. It doesn't all land on day one.
And sometimes there's things that weren't even announced then that appear.
That appear. So yeah, they swings and roundabouts a little bit, but they do seem to be getting them out.
I mean, it's interesting with this release, you look at the list and general availability is October 24. There's only one on there that's got September 24 as a preview. So some of them, and you go further down into some of the Copilot features, for instance, and it's
next
January
year.
25.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see how much we get in the preview in September.
Okay, well, let's dive in. Lizzie's controlling the screen that we're all looking at with the latest features. So where do we want to start? The first one
is application.
The application. So you've got the new use new reports and demo data for financial reporting.
I think that's useful. So what used to be called account schedules now financial reports. For customers starting out from scratch, trying to build those, you need a bit of training, you need a bit of education on how to do it. However, they provided a set of base data in effect that means you can get going and creating some.
Okay.
So I do think it's useful.
Right, and it's a massively underutilised feature still.
It is.
A lot of our customers still will take TB and use that to go and do their P&L and balance sheet in something else.
Right.
I mean, the column definitions are especially useful. I think the row definitions, where in effect it requires you to have a set chart of accounts.
It helps to have something to work from when you're doing because it can get quite confusing, especially if you're trying to do period on period comparisons and things like that. So it allows you to kind of have a template to work from.
Everybody out there who looked at financial reporting or account schedules, it was called, when they implemented 3-5 years ago or whenever, and said this isn't good enough. It didn't have the number of columns to fit a whole year across and all the rest of it. Go back, look at it now, because it's release on release. It's been improved and it is much better.
Yeah.
Okay, so jumping down to the next one, which is one we were talking about just before we started recording.
I got all excited about it and then realised it wasn't actually what I thought it was.
So subscription, managed subscription billing and revenue recognition. So Microsoft have, again, and this is kind of the second time that they've done this, they bought a solution in from a partner, a German partner that specialises in the IT sector. I think the background to this was Microsoft got a lot of pushback from actually Microsoft partners that they couldn't use Business Central because it didn't handle subscription billing. So they bought a solution in that they're building in. It will be interesting to see quite how that knits in. So there's two schools of thought here. Is Microsoft build it themselves, they build it in the platform, and generally Release 0 has a lot of features that it doesn't have. Let's just put it that way.
It's immature.
Yes. And so, you get several releases in, they have to do quite a lot of work. When they buy it in from a third party, as the opposite question of, well, is it kind of connected the way, is it built into the core application the way that it would be if it would grown in that core application?
This partner, though, has been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, decades.
So very, very experienced. And so you would hope it's a fully functioning solution. However, I thought it might help our customers manage their subscriptions, because obviously more and more of what you buy, not just software, but all kinds of different things, and very significant
recurring
expenses.
Purchase orders are a requirement.
I thought it might help you handle that, so you could kind of track your contract dates. It would help you then build your budgets, all that kind of thing. I thought it was going to be that, but it's not that. So it is primarily for use by people who provide subscription-based services.
Yes.
So,
but a good new feature to have.
I think it will be a complete, because of the company that have been doing it for so long, I think it will be ready to go.
But we are seeing, the world itself, not just in software, we probably skewed a bit because we've seen it for a long time, but this idea of providing a subscription-based service where people can have a bit more flexibility, you're not tied into maybe a huge contract or you're paying everything up front. It's interesting to see how, when we had a customer that did fencing, and they now rent their fencing as well, so they do fencing as a service. So it is starting to drop into lots of things. They do it for festivals or road
that's
work.
Not the Olympic fencing where they're on.
No, not that fencing. But
although they did supply a lot of fencing to the Olympics.
Okay.
Different fencing.
Paris needed it, yeah.
Okay, so some more improvements to Shopify integration, which is always a challenge, isn't it, with any kind of web integration, is when a customer places a payment, how they pay it, and how that gets allocated to the
specifically this is about having, if a customer pays with more than one payment method, so 75% they'll stick on their credit card and the balance they'll put on a store card, or
if they've got a gift voucher or something like that.
So
this is for Shopify. It's more
so it's the kind of, when you then pull your payments in from your payment providers, there's some
reconciling with what
tools to help
sold on Shopify. I mean that's a case in point for what I was just saying. Shopify was something they bought in. And now they're having to go and add some extra features to it to kind of make it fully featured in terms of what it needs to be in the core app.
But it's good for them to see they're still, they don't just buy a product in and go, right, that's it, we forget about it. They're constantly taking feedback and improving the product.
That will have come from a suggestion, I would imagine, because it's fairly common.
Yeah.
So, we go through these phases, don't we, where particular areas get all this love. So at the moment it seems to be projects, jobs. So this is good though. This allows you to generate purchase orders for specific items for jobs, projects. So to create demand.
Which is a very common requirement.
Something we've customised.
Many times. Well, to be honest, using projects and putting items, unless you're just purely professional services, if you use any items on a job, you probably need to raise a purchase order at some point.
So that's good. And then once you've raised that purchase order, you can then put away that purchase order using directed picks and put aways as well. So that's
again, it was a crazy gap.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I think when you put it away, it then consumes it, so it doesn't leave it in stock, which is kind of the way projects works.
It can be. I mean, whether it should reserve it until you actually ship it.
Yeah, because quite often you might bring a load of stuff in and wait for it all to come in together before you then go and.
There's no shipping processes.
No, that's but you got to think that's it's going to be next, isn't it? There's a pick process, but that's quite common though, isn't it? That people will assemble everything for a job, or they will bring it all.
They will have a shelf, but I'm not a fan of like you have a bin where you put everything for that project in that bin, because it's not a very efficient way of warehousing, is it? You bring it in. The fact that you need 12 of those in that bin for different projects, that's what reservations are for.
Yeah, exactly. But it also means that people hold stuff in there that they could have used to fill another purchase order and still had stuff coming in for that one. So
you've got kind of cycling, using the oldest product first and all that sort of stuff. It gets messy.
This list goes gone to two different lists. Right, so e-documents.
Yeah.
So that seems to be something that is...
there's a lot of work going on around this, and I think Microsoft have a little bit have been forced into this, or forced to do quite a bit of work, I think, by the PEPL requirements, particularly Scandinavian countries. It's a big topic of conversation. You've got some of the Scandinavian countries where it's almost becoming the default.
So what is the PEPL route, just for anybody?
So PEPL is in effect, it's an electronic data standard. It's an up-to-date form of EDI. It is probably the easiest way of describing it, of sending invoices specifically.
But it's much more standardised. So in Europe, in the Scandinavian countries, it's just a completely standardised way of transacting.
And it's a kind of central
it makes such a lot of
communication
sense.
hub that our customer, let's say, will send into the PEPL hub, and then the supplier might use a different partner completely to receive that message. It's just that it standardises that middle
There's two.
But you've always said EDI was meant to be a standard, and there was billions. So this is making that a little bit better than what we've got currently.
Yeah, all you need to do is worry about getting it into PEPL. You don't have to. Whereas we have to worry about both sides.
Okay.
So I think it's interesting to see. Because I think the future of Business Central is much more electronic documents of all type, not just invoices and orders, which traditionally is what's happened now. But there's, if you look at a lot, we're doing more and more integration work to interface third parties. A lot of those are messaging type integrations where you're passing information from an external system into Business Central or out of Business Central automatically. I think that, I'm hoping that the eDocs framework will evolve into something that can cope with all different types of messages for third-party logistics, or all the other different types of pricings, ASNs. There's a whole bunch of different messages, because actually we could really do with that framework where regardless of where the order comes from, whether it comes from Shopify or other e-commerce systems, or a PEPL order that's come from a trading partner or EDI, traditional EDI or whatever, it goes through the same kind of validation and checks before it's posted into the system. And also, users have one place to go and sort out any issues with that e-document before it's transacted into the system. Because when data comes in, you've got kind of data translation of what they use for the code versus what you use for code and all that sort of different things. So I hope Microsoft have the bigger vision that this.
I hope so too, because the way I've read this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is this really will only work for overhead type invoices. That's the eDocs and the AI document capture stuff, and that's because it hasn't got the capability to map to a purchase order, receipt against a purchase order, and match an invoice to a purchase order. So actually it will only work if you've got overhead type invoices that wouldn't go through that purchase order. That's my understanding.
But then Microsoft, in their defense, they're building something. They've got to start somewhere. They've also got regulatory compliance in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, wherever. Yeah. So, they've got partners in those countries saying, we need this now. Yeah. So they've got to get something out. But I'm hoping that without a breaking change, they can increase the scope and do a phase 2, phase 3. Because actually, I think e-documents, that's going to be a very, very big part of Business Central's future.
I agree, but I just think people need to be aware that it's quite limited at the moment in terms of what it can do, because there's no matching functionality, which means
it's quite limited. And also from my look at it, it's not extensible by an ISV in the way that it needs to be, because a lot of these interfaces Microsoft are not going to provide. They're going to be provided by a third-party ISV. Those ISVs need the ability to make it do what they need it to do.
So it's similar to this, the next feature, the capture data from eDocs. So people might say, right, do I need my continuous subscription? So
it's capturing
my continuous subscription anymore.
Yes, using Azure AI, so it's OCR in the document.
It is, but that's all it does.
Yeah.
And what you get with Continue or other third-party applications is that whole process of matching. And
so Continue are going to be like every other ISV. They've got to, innovate in their product to make sure that they stay way ahead of Microsoft, so that the extra value that they provide. And I think, why did Microsoft need to do this? Continue is pretty much the default solution in most Business Central implementations out there. I don't know.
Because it uses AI.
Well,
any AI usage?
Yes, but the product team keep complaining that they haven't got enough resources to do all these things that they need to do, and then they go and do something that's well sorted for the majority. And I know in some, I guess in some markets, from what I'm told, they get complaints of, why do we need to buy an add-on? Some of the competing products just do this. Yeah, but just doing something not as well as it can.
It's like any type of specialisation, isn't it? You can either be a jack of all trades and do everything, this deep, or you have a specialist who can do it, who can do the whole process end to end, like Continua.
I mean, we're seeing this in the sales when we're talking to new opportunities. There are some people have a mindset that actually Business Central does what it does at the core. It's a platform, and then we're going to go and buy the best of breed apps and integrate with them. Some people go, I don't like all these apps. I want it all out of the box. But you're only going to get a mile wide but an inch deep with the functionality or what it offers you. So it's weird how different organisations have a different mindset towards it.
But if you look at my iPhone and your iPhone, I would imagine we have different sets of apps for our different requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course you do. That's what AppSource does.
Want to do that, but
that's what AppSource is good at, isn't it? There's so much stuff on there to find, and you do your
evaluation. We'll all have the same core Apple apps, so have the calendar, but then the other stuff we have might be specialist. We're not
doing an Apple iPhone app review on our phones today. But I get what you're saying. It's absolutely right. You get what you need.
What you need.
But there's a contrast from Microsoft here, isn't there? Because they bought in the subscription billing piece. Why didn't they go buy Continue?
You
might need to ask the directors of Continue. I don't know.
I think they've always got to keep adding new stuff, and we've got apps, haven't we, that we know Microsoft have chipped away at. But then you look at what ours do compared to what you get otherwise. There is an element where Microsoft have to say, yes, we have this tick to get through certain qualifications. I guess for some organisations.
What's the criteria where they say we're going to buy that one versus build that one? What's the function with that? Because
you will have to. If anyone from Microsoft wants to come on the podcast,
we do our own product, don't we? We know what the thought process is behind that.
Yeah.
So they've got a finite number of resources. They channel it into what they think is got the most. It's got the most need and will improve the product the best.
I mean, going on down that list, there's a few more Shopify improvements, but integrate field service with service management. So this seems to be something that Microsoft are, they did some in the Wave 1 release. I think this is the journey.
D365 service management. So it's not the service management within.
Well, you can't integrate service management with service management.
Yes, it's field service with service management. So it's D365 field service, which is the kind of separate application, separate platform, based on the Power Platform, integrating with service management, and now it's getting to the point where it's viable. In my view, you can kind of inventory transactions seem to be supported now, which was for me always the catastrophic gap, because I've never come across a service engineer who didn't need a part occasionally, and the fact that it deals with locations, so you can understand what they've got on the van and what they need to requisition from central stores or from a supplier. That seems now to be filled in. So it's interesting. I think that's got a lot of potential. Where that fits alongside, there's a few ISVs out there in the BC space who'll be perhaps sweating a bit more again that their solutions aren't there. But Build Service is it's a nice looking solution.
It's been around for a while, isn't it? So it is. There are products just getting better because it wasn't great. It's good to see Microsoft trying to join those products up, because we talk about D365 being a suite of products that will work together. Yeah. And as you said, there was a big gap between field service integrating with
what try using these two.
Well, there was no integration.
I think we're cautiously optimistic. I think would probably explain that.
Going in the right direction.
Go investigate it.
Yeah. Okay. Copilot. Can't do a podcast without mentioning Copilot.
Did somebody say customers have started calling it Copilot?
So,
what's this Copilot?
Well, I mean, it's just this. I just think if you look at what the kind of things that they're talking about releasing, so that it will almost create a sales order for you, or it will, that. I just think it's so far away from where we were. I remember a few years ago with a particular customer that we worked on together, James, where they did not want anything to default into a sales order because whoever the user was wouldn't check it. Yeah. So it was better to have the field blank than it was to auto-populate it, because if it was auto-populated, they just leave it as it was.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a complete mind shift change here, so that people are more reviewing rather than inputting. And that's the same with Copilot once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. That's the same as it is when you're using it day to day. I use it to transcribe a conversation.
It's not the pilot. That's what it's called, Copilot. It's there to assist, not to fly the plane.
Yeah, exactly. So one of our engagement managers recorded a conversation that I had with a customer the other day, and she summarised it and sent it to the customer, and I didn't check it first. And at one point it says, Liz said that we have done something for other customers. What I actually said is, we have never done this for other customers. Now, that could get me in real trouble. Look, I spotted it and I corrected it straight away. But we have to change our mindset, because I don't know about you, but I'm not great at reviewing documents. Sometimes when you read things and you read what you think you're going to read.
This is like people. When our community has a lot of people who are great engineers, and then when they managing is a whole different skill set, because you have to review, you have to coach, you have to whatever. Not do. And if you think about it, all it is you are doing exactly the same with a machine rather than a person.
Yeah.
So, everybody has got to learn the management kind of skill sets. You're just managing a piece of technology rather than effectively.
But it's a far better use of time. So rather than somebody inputting a 100-line sales order, all they're doing is reviewing what's been created, but it is a different skill set and a different mindset to look at data and
even when humans
see you say 100-line, and I go, because when you do it,
it's an exaggeration.
But when there's a lot, actually, if you do it as if you do it, as you go along that you've done it right. If you're presented with something that size and you've got to check that it's right, you've almost got to do it again.
That's what That's what I mean. So, it's totally different.
I think it's looking at use cases for Copilot, and actually there aren't a lot that an end user is going to use. Is that, bank rec, create sales lines.
I think the bank rec one's excellent.
Bank rec, I think, is probably the best example I could think of. And I did see another one which I thought
they're talking the sales line creation there about attachments. So if you've got a CSV file attached, it will try and identify product and quantities within that file.
Yeah, it'll suggest variants and things, which I thought
when you create new items.
Really good. But it just worries me that people, if you watch somebody, not us, because we don't use Business Central day-to-day inputting, but if you watch somebody that does, they're on autopilot. It's like when you drive to work and you can't remember how you got there.
Yes.
You don't remember. I don't remember passing something.
I didn't turn the indicator on here.
I know. I just think it is a different mindset. If they're using this, then potentially, but maybe that's where some of the other things. I don't know, some of the other skills come in.
Sometimes using it in the right circumstances, isn't it, or the right situation, like you said.
So I think it's going to be a long time before the mindsets change.
I mean, on the clever side, the discussions around how we best use the Copilot functionality to put it in, the best use cases we've come up with is actually automating complex setups. So it's not actually the transaction itself.
It did make me laugh, actually, because now Copilot sets up Copilot. So that's,
yes.
the best use case is itself. I don't know.
And you can't turn it off. Series with Copilot, there's
well,
It's kind of like, well, it is a boring part.
Calm yourself, Matt. Calm yourself.
It's a boring part of an implementation, isn't it? And if it makes it like 2 minutes rather than 10 minutes, well, that's 8 minutes saved. But it's not the kind of thing that's going to revolutionise our world.
As you said, I think the functionality we've seen where you can use more natural language when you're typing into I want this, and Copilot is getting much better at then saying, okay, I know what you want, and producing results. It's almost like improving your search or your reporting without knowing all the the syntax or the code inside to do it.
I think the cross BC data inquiries that you can do on I don't know if it's even on the release yet, but you can say which customers spent the most on bicycles in the last 3 months, and it goes away.
It's an interrogation point, isn't it?
That's really useful. That's putting sales order lines on them. Really,
but there's an element here, isn't it, where Microsoft have obviously said we've got to push Copilot at everything, and the engineers and the guys at Business Centre say, okay, where can we put it to get our tick box saved and fun? Yeah. And it's only been out for under 2 years, 18 months. Coming up for 2 years, isn't it, this autumn? So
it's a revolutionary new technology.
It's very new, isn't it? It's going to get there.
Don't you think, though, that we're going to get a new generation coming through that have a different attitude to this kind of thing anyway? So if you're in, we're a bit off topic now, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's my pet topic at the moment. If you're in school or university at the moment, you can get any information that you need just like that. So the skill has to be for the teachers to teach how they make sure that they're using the correct information, how they make sure they validate those, how they produce their own opinions, how they produce their own analysis of that data, rather than actually preparing the data. So surely days of writing, essays of just facts are gone. They're interpreting and analysing that and validating the sources. So I think that's where the mindset will change as time goes on. But I think we're way off that yet.
The whole kind of asking for a piece of information and getting that piece of information back. I mean, I'm loving Copilot in terms of I ask it a question and I get an answer, not 42 links.
Yeah.
Of which 18 are sponsored and are probably nothing to do with actually what I'm asking in the first place.
Exactly.
So I think that's where the skill is. And when that analysis, I agree with you, Matt. When asking Business Central for those questions and it's the reporting side, I think, is the biggest potential. I think we'll see. It doesn't seem to be in the release documentation, but I think there's something coming on that's going to make it much better.
You turn it on, it says, oh, by the way, you need to ring these customers because it looks like these orders are going to be late. Because the purchase orders slipped.
It's the kind of notification side.
I found, I came back off holiday and the first thing I did when I came back to work, obviously not the first thing I did as soon as I got I went to Copilot. You can do this on your phone, on the Copilot app, and I just put, what have I missed in the last 2 weeks? And it went through Teams, it went through my inbox. And so if there was a couple of emails that, well, so-and-so's chased you for something, it was very good at giving me that list, at least as a summary. You haven't got back
to me though, have you, Liam?
No. It's got a rule about ignore, but I find those ways of Copilot too. Like you said, there's an awful lot of data out there, and you've taken that into the bigger world, but from a works point of view, to have that and to at least give me a head start on, okay, well, I had forgot about that. That definitely needs to be resolved first thing when you get in the office or turn your laptop on. I think those are useful. And if you can do it with BC, like you said, and you should be phoning this person today, or there's an issue here with the potential order because I can see what's happening with the ability to get the stock or something along those lines, but it's giving you the head start.
I don't think that the Business Central product team have been ambitious enough. I think AI. I want to walk up to BC and say, what do I need to do first? And it looks at all the different tasks that are due for happening across the system. That can be, a VAT return. It could be a purchase payment. It could be a sales order needs shipping or whatever. And it looks at what my role is, and it says, this is we have a user task list which you have to populate yourself. I want AI to populate the user task list and prioritise it, so I just work my way around the task list. Now, something like that I think would be truly revolutionary and would differentiate Business Central from any other product out there, because I don't know anybody who's doing that, that can take all those kind of environmental factors and look at the consequence and the value of that sales order versus, the criticality of that vendor and all the different other things that you've got factors and make a decision, and then kind of when you say no, that's not first, that's bottom of the list, it kind of remembers that for next time of, oh, that's a lower priority. So I worry that in because of the rush, because of the politics within Microsoft, because of the rush to get something with Copilot capability out there, they've had to go look for the easy wins. And that's going to mean that we've got to wait longer for the truly revolutionary stuff that actually is really going to change our world.
Let's move on. Let's move on from Copilot. Copilot.
But that's what you want from AI, isn't it? I mean, that's where it really becomes a different thing, whether the product is ready yet and the amount, like you said, the amount of work to do that. And we've just said when you get something from Copilot, you have to put your own take on it. Is this the right information? You're almost saying there, you give that to a general user and say, right, that is what you're doing today because that's the priority. And then someone says, well, it wasn't. The thing at number 8 should have been the first thing you did. There's always that
element. You should learn from that.
Yeah,
you know that if it is true,
I'm sure it'll get there, but
because the majority of users that they start up in the morning and they go, "What have I got to do today?" And actually, you know, they have to go to 24 different places in Business Central, and we, you know, Microsoft got it actually a long time ago when they redesigned the role center and came up with queues.
Yeah.
But the queue is just a horrible. You know, you've got all these different numbers, and what do they actually mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It's all relative as well, isn't it? Because a number to one person is fine, and another company that number's completely
and when it's like
ridiculous.
three sales orders, one of which is for like 20 cents, and another one is like, you know, 500 million. It's kind of like there's no prioritization of which one do I need to do first.
Right. Let's move on from Copilot. Right. So. As always, there's some country and region. I don't think there's anything there that we need to pick out specifically.
There can't be many places in the world now we can't put Business Central.
No, there's not. I mean, it's
North Korea, is
170 countries now.
Okay.
And it's like you look at the ones, and by and large, the majority on the list that's left, because I did the comparison, Microsoft are prohibited from selling their software by the US Department of Commerce. Right. So it's kind of like Venezuela and North Korea and Iran. And
there's a one development.
I was going to say, if anyone wants to pick any of the developer items, not my. Sorry, my head in your way.
A little bit. So for reporting, so we're talking Word layout reports on documents. There's a add-in for Word, and you can hide and show sections.
Okay.
Kind of dynamically, which has always been a reason to have to go back to the RDLC layouts because you could put logic behind it. You couldn't do that in Word. Now there's an add-in to do that. For me, that's
a big jump,
really
isn't it?
Yeah.
The MVP group had a preview of that quite a long time ago now. So, you know, I'm hopeful that this is going to be a very mature piece because it's been in the works for a while. I think from the way that you kind of drag and drop now and so on, the experience of creating your Word layouts is way, way better, and will be a lot easier for clients to do, control the layout.
It's probably a good example of how long actually, from a conception and an idea of something that Microsoft do, which Word layout's been around for how long now? It's a few years, isn't it?
Yeah.
And customers, I love the idea of that. It's something I know I'm familiar with, and it's only now we're getting to the point where you're getting some of that essential functionality that we've had.
It's driven by the need to get rid of the old reporting functionality, though. So,
but we talked about on the podcast several times, haven't we, how RDL is a little bit of a kind of legacy threat that doesn't have a future. So I'm really pleased to see that Microsoft are making Word equivalent or better than RDL before they deprecate RDL.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they need to do is they sometimes they remove something, sales pricing, anybody, they remove something before the new one is equivalent to the old one. And that just leaves very much frustration with customers there. So
that will be RDL.
Yeah, a backward step is worse than no step, isn't it? So,
yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So use embedded Power BI reports out of the box. I think this is going to be the big highlight of the release.
Wasn't this teased in the Wave 1 release? There was some extra Power BI stuff coming into it, and has it not really landed?
So I think this is again a buy-in. So Microsoft have.
Sorry, Liam.
done a purchase from a from an Australian partner this time, and done a lot of work to make them kind of multilingual and make it so that its decimal points are in numbers are the correct representation for the country and all the rest of it and so on. So, but I like this a lot. I think it's going to power.
It's a bit like what we were saying about the financial reporting as well. It's sometimes you just need a starting point. Sometimes you just need a reference point, something because when we do a new project and we go in and we say, what reports do you want? Mm-hmm. All the reports, everything. We want to be able to report on everything. Well, sometimes you need a starting point, and this will help people, I think, say, well, that's good, but actually what we could really do is that with this added on.
Conversely, you also get some customers where they'll just get, can I get sales by item? It's like, yeah. It's like, they don't have any...
No inspiration, is there?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Yeah, that starting point, I think, is
to be
really
clear
useful.
to the viewers at home, because obviously they're not seeing what we're reading, there's 14 finance reports,
They are,
12
the screen, don't they?
sales reports, 13 purchasing reports, 7 inventory, 11 manufacturing, and 6 projects reports. So good range of functionality
but
there.
A Power BI report on manufacturing, I mean, that's revolutionary, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, wow.
A report on manufacturing is quite revolutionary, I feel.
So really, really good. I think it'll be.
And they're not going to meet everybody's needs because reporting's quite. It's quite. Each business is quite specific needs. However, like I say, it's a starting point. It's your inspiration. It's your.
And if the data sets are there, then
it should be easy to go and change what you actually want.
And it's inside Business Central, so it's embedded.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's easy. I'm interested to see quite where the gap is, where you need a Power BI Pro license, which is an extra £10 a month.
We shall see.
Yeah.
User experiences. Look at that, resize columns, even when personalisation isn't enabled. Wowzers.
Use drag and drop on file upload to attach multiple files.
Nice usability, but nothing to...
because it was a bit clunky, and so on. So I think, it's not... sum up, I don't think there's some nice features in this.
Much highlight.
I mean, the highlight of the Wave 1 release for me was page scripting. I think that still hasn't been fully exploited. The ones that for me are the revolutionary ones do take a while to kind of be understood and hit because they are such a revolutionary one. I think probably the Power BI, I mean, the reporting.
If I think about all
Word and Power BI,
if I think about existing customers, that to me is going to be the biggest benefit, I think. If you just look at this release in isolation, that's the thing that they should be looking at, is those Power BI reports.
And
the Copilot will evolve, that will evolve. The usage of that will evolve as people's mindsets change, that will evolve.
Like we said with the Word
Power BI,
stuff,
that's something that you go on and you can say immediately, right, let's
we used to get a release every 3 years of this software going back a day. So there was plenty of time to have these huge revolutionary changes. This is the idea of where we've gone to with subscription. We've done loads of these now. We haven't actually said, wow, this is the most amazing thing ever, but we look back and say, actually, that's now got.
If you go back to BC14 and look at what we've had since then, you go, wow.
Oh, well, yeah. What we've had in the last 2 years has just been amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for all the beef we've given Microsoft product team over the last 45 minutes.
No imagination and all the rest,
If you just work on James's AI vision, that would be fantastic. But, okay, well, I think...
we're going to be replaced by robots.
I mean, I think that's completely wrong in terms of, I think that, it's what we said earlier. We're going to need to check the robots.
Yeah.
It's the robots. You're going to manage the robots. You're not going to.
I'm starting work on a robot checker. That's the future.
Start work on a robot.
So it's going to be a long, long time before. And actually, arguably, what AI is going to do, it's going to make systems more complex. And so the architecture, the design of those systems is going to be more critical.
Also, I don't want to sound boring, but it means you've got to make sure your data's right as well. And I can't say it all the time, but otherwise you're giving the robot the ability to give you information based on crap data.
So can I finish this off by doing a little plug for a clever product? So one of the clever products we've got is a product called Clever Data Validation. Okay, and it annoyed the hell out of me because it's one of those products which I thought was amazing because it checked your data when you set up a record. It could say, if you've got this in this field, this field must be this value or this. And setting it up, you needed to be a quantum master in Business Central filters to actually be able to set the rules up. And so what we did as the first Copilot kind of piece in the Clever team is that we got an English language. You could just say what I just said, which is you read in English what you want the data validation rule to be, and it creates the filters for you. And I'm really chuffed that I think we're one of the first people, because we've published this to AppSource now. So it's in there. It's one of the first Copilot framework add-ons that I think is in AppSource and is free for any customers to try using. It makes the product really valuable because it means that your inventory item rule, your vendor setup rule, your GL posting rules, whatever, you can describe those. Set the data validation rule up, use Copilot to do the setup, and then the rule will just apply for every time after that. So well done to the Clever team. I think they it's revolution. That's because it's made just any Business Central user can describe what they want and get that rule created for them, rather than somebody who needed, and as I say, a master's in Business Central filters.
There's only George. There's only George in the whole world that could do that.
And for any of our customers who are listening to this, if you've got Clever Essentials, that's included. So get the latest version of data validation down on your system. It's all there.
If you want to be able to take advantage of all this stuff that we're talking about, then get the basics right.
But that's, you say get your data right, Liz. Knowing whether your data's right or wrong is actually quite a time-consuming exercise.
Yeah, it is.
Who's got, who can go through 1,000 inventory items and say, well, that one's wrong. Data validation, you set the filter of this is the rule, this is the criteria, and you can apply that rule and say, show me all of the records that I've got that don't match that, and it will give you the 6 out of 1,000 that don't match that rule.
It's not just for new people who are setting data up. It will work on existing data and check the data.
So there's a kind of process of, if I do something in Business Central and find that this record has got something that's caused a process to go wrong, a wrong price to be charged to a customer, or something of that nature, what I do is I actually take that back to the root of saying, right, what was the data that was wrong? And I do it right up here, and the machine looks after it after that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you've managed to get to the end of this podcast, please switch on data validation. We'll expect an influx of support calls on that very subject because everyone's already got it if they've got Clever Essentials.
Tecman are paying the bills for the AI usage of Clever data validation because there's no other option at the moment. Microsoft haven't built, so we could any other option. But more than happy. I'm interested to see what that builds up. So if you want to stick it back to Tecman and get us to pay for something, then go use your Clever data validation.
Okay, well, guys, thank you for today. Today's episode has been brought to you by Clever Dynamics Data Validation. But it is a really cool app. It's one, it is nice to see Copilot in there, so go play with that. Okay, well, thanks everyone for your contribution. We'll make sure the link for the document is in the YouTube description, maybe even a link to Clever Dynamics website while we're there. We'll push that in there.
Why not?
But thanks, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you all again on another episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics.